When she said it, I actually laughed. Not because it was funny, but because of how casually she threw those words out, like they didn't mean anything. Stop acting like we're married. We're just dating. She said it while scrolling through her phone, barely glancing up, her tone soaked in that modern arrogance people mistake for independence. For a second, I thought she was joking. Married? Really? Just because I cared enough to plan her birthday dinner, fix her leaky sink, or drive across town when her car battery died. That's acting married? But she was serious. I remember sitting there on her couch, that faint scent of her lavender candle mixing with the frustration slowly bubbling up inside me. I'd been her rock, her steady hand, the one she called when things went wrong, and somehow that became too much for her. Maybe I should have seen it coming. The little signs, the shift in tone, the way she'd started pulling back, claiming she needed space, that we were moving too fast. It's always the same pattern. You give someone stability, and they start mistaking it for control. I stared at her and said nothing for a moment. Silence can be louder than anger, and I wanted her to feel it, but she didn't. She just smirked slightly, eyes still on her screen, like she just delivered some empowering truth. That was the night something in me shifted. It wasn't rage. It wasn't sadness. It was something colder. Clarity. She wanted just dating? Fine. She'd get exactly that. I didn't argue, didn't try to reason. I simply nodded and said, "You're absolutely right." She looked up, confused for half a second, then went back to scrolling, not realizing that was the last time she'd see that version of me. The one who went out of his way to make her feel special, to show her what partnership looks like. From that night on, I made a quiet decision. I would treat her exactly how she defined the relationship. Just dating, nothing more. The very next morning, I started small. Usually, I'd bring her coffee when I came over. I knew how she liked it. 2 sugars, no cream. This time, I showed up empty-handed. She noticed. "Where's my coffee?" she asked, half smiling. "Oh," I said casually. "Didn't think it was my job to bring it." "You know, since we're not married," her expression froze for a second before she laughed awkwardly. "Oh, come on, don't be petty." "Not petty," I said, "just aligning expectations." That day, I watched her face change, the tiniest flicker of discomfort showing through her carefully composed confidence. I used to pay for dinner without a thought. She never had to ask. I just did it. She'd reach for her purse in that performative way women do, like she might contribute, but never actually intended to. And I never minded, until now. That Friday, we went out as usual. Nice restaurant, candlelight, music soft in the background. When the check came, I let it sit there. She looked at me, waiting. I didn't move. Finally, she laughed nervously. "You're not going to get that," I smiled. "We're just dating, right? Let's split it." Her eyes widened like I just suggested a felony. "Wait, you're serious?" "Of course. 50-50. Seems fair." I slid the bill toward her side of the table. She didn't argue, at least not that night. But the energy shifted. The silence that followed wasn't comfortable anymore. It was calculating. She was reassessing me. You see, most people talk about equality until it's time to practice it. By the next week, the pattern continued. I stopped driving across town to pick her up for dates. Instead, I'd text, "Meet me there?" Sometimes she'd complain about traffic or parking. I'd just reply, "Yeah, it's a pain. See you soon." No more bending over backward. No more rearranging my plans to fit her schedule. I started doing things I used to postpone for her. Gym sessions, poker nights, weekends with friends. The things she'd subtly guilt me out of by saying, "I just wanted to spend time with you." Well, now she got exactly what she said she wanted. Less of me. The funny thing? The less attention I gave her, the more she started chasing mine. Suddenly, she was calling more, asking what I was doing, suggesting spontaneous hangouts. The same woman who once said I was too available was now trying to fit herself into my calendar. I'd answer politely but not eagerly. No more rushing replies. No more dropping everything just because she called. And that's when I realized something profound. People only value what they have to earn. She never had to earn me. I handed myself to her, my time, my care, my effort, on a silver platter. She didn't see its worth until it wasn't automatically hers anymore. The first real crack appeared 2 weeks in. We were out with friends. Someone joked about relationship roles and she laughed, saying, "Well, we're not one of those couples who do everything together. We're chill." Her tone had that edge, like she was trying to show how unattached she was. I just nodded. "Yeah, we're keeping it casual." She turned to look at me, eyes narrowing. "Casual?" I shrugged. "That's what you wanted, right?" She didn't respond, but I could feel the tension simmering between us. That night, she barely spoke on the drive home. When we reached her apartment, she hesitated before getting out. Then she said quietly, "You've been different lately." "Just trying to match your energy," I said, smiling. She stared at me for a long moment before muttering, "This isn't what I meant." But it was. She just didn't like the reality of her own words. Because here's the truth. Most people don't want casual. They want control. They want the comfort of your effort without the accountability of commitment. She'd built this narrative where I was too serious, too invested. But once I stopped being that, she realized the silence that followed wasn't peaceful. It was empty. Days passed. The calls got longer. Her texts got sweeter. She started complimenting me more, touching my arm when she spoke, laughing harder at my jokes. It was all an unspoken plea. Come back. But I wasn't playing the same game anymore. I'd learned the difference between affection that's genuine and affection born out of fear of losing control. The next weekend, she suggested dinner again. I agreed. When the bill came, I reached for it first. I could see relief wash over her face, like things were back to normal. But I stopped midway, smiled, and slid it between us. "Half?" I said lightly. Her smile vanished. "You're still doing that?" "Doing what?" This, this splitting thing. You never used to be like this?" I leaned back. "I never used to date someone who complained about me acting married in either." She looked down, silent. "I thought you liked when I took care of things," I continued. "Guess I was wrong." She sighed. "That's not what I meant. I just, I don't want you to feel like you have to do everything." "Don't worry," I said. "I don't feel that way anymore." Her lips parted like she wanted to say more, but she didn't. The silence stretched between us, heavy with the weight of everything unspoken. By the time we left, I knew the tide had completely turned, because she started reaching for my hand first. She started asking for reassurance, the same kind she used to act like she didn't need. People crave balance, but they also crave validation. When you take away both, they start craving you. And I won't lie, there was satisfaction in it. Not revenge, not spite, just balance being restored. I was finally seeing her through a clear lens, not the rose-tinted one love had fogged over. That night she texted me, "I miss how we used to be." I replied, "You mean when I was acting married?" She didn't respond for an hour. Then finally, "Can we talk?" Of course we talked, but not in the way she expected, because by then I wasn't trying to prove my worth. I knew it. When someone tells you you're too much, what they really mean is, you're giving more than they're willing to reciprocate. And when you take that away, when you stop over-investing, they're forced to face what they actually bring to the table. Spoiler, she didn't bring much. The next few days were a blur of small moments where she tried to reassert the old dynamic. She'd say things like, "You never do sweet things anymore," or "You're acting distant." And I'd calmly remind her, "I'm just acting like we're dating. Isn't that what you wanted?" Every time her silence said more than her words ever could. What used to be power in her hands was now balance. She was starting to realize that partnership doesn't mean one person carries the weight while the other just enjoys the ride. The shift didn't happen overnight. It crept in slowly. Between the long pauses in our conversations, the hesitant texts, the way she started showing up in places she knew I'd be. It was subtle at first. "Hey, are you free tonight?" Here. "Remember when we used to?" There. Like she was tiptoeing around the truth. She missed the version of me she took for granted. And I can't blame her. The man she used to know was available on demand. The man she knew now was selective. One Saturday morning, I was out having brunch with some friends. She called twice, then texted, Can you call me when you get a chance? I waited 2 hours before replying. Just finished. What's up? She didn't even try to play it cool. Nothing, I just wanted to see you. I could have dropped everything and gone. That's what the old me would have done. But I didn't. Instead, I replied, I've got plans later. Maybe tomorrow. There was a long pause before her next message came. Okay, tomorrow then. That's when I knew she finally understood what she'd lost. When someone says stop acting like we're married, what they really mean is stop holding me accountable for what I'm taking. They don't want the partnership to end. They just want the benefits without the responsibility. But once you match that energy, the illusion collapses. The next day she came over. No makeup, hoodie, hair pulled back, the kind of look she used to reserve for comfort, not confession. She sat on my couch quietly while I poured coffee for both of us. For a long moment she said nothing. Then softly, I feel like you've changed. I smiled faintly. I have. Her eyes lifted to mine. I don't like it. I know. She exhaled sharply, leaning forward. You used to be, I don't know, more caring, more predictable, I interrupted. She hesitated. I didn't say that. You didn't have to. She looked away, biting her lip like she wanted to say something, but couldn't find the words. Do you even want this anymore? She finally asked. I leaned back, crossing my arms. Depends. What's this exactly? Because last I checked, we were just dating. Her eyes welled up, not from anger, but from recognition. She finally saw the weight of what she'd said weeks ago and how it had rewritten everything between us. I didn't mean it like that, she whispered. How did you mean it then? She hesitated, her voice breaking slightly. I just didn't want you to feel like you had to do everything. I didn't want you to think I was taking advantage. I looked at her for a long moment. You weren't worried about taking advantage. You were worried about commitment. Her silence confirmed it. I was never acting married, I continued. I was just acting like someone who cared. You're the one who turned love into a contract with fine print. She looked up then, eyes glassy. So what now? I shrugged slightly. Now? I just live the way you wanted. Independent, balanced, casual. She flinched at the last word. Casual. The very thing she once claimed to want. People think detachment is power, but real power is peace. And for the first time in a long while, I had it. We sat there in silence. She kept fidgeting with her sleeve, waiting for me to soften, to reach out, to bridge the gap. But I didn't. She finally stood, looking smaller somehow. I miss you, she said quietly. I met her gaze. No, you miss the version of me that made your life easier. She didn't argue, because deep down, she knew I was right. After she left, I just sat there for a while, staring at the coffee mugs we hadn't touched. It's strange how fast love can turn into reflection, how moments that used to feel warm can start to taste like lessons. Over the next few days, she texted more often, compliments, memories, little reminders of better times. I'd respond politely but never emotionally. One night, she finally broke the pattern. Can we go back to how things were? I read it twice, then typed back. You mean before you said we were just dating? There was a pause before she replied. Yes. I didn't realize what I had. It was almost cinematic, like one of those moments in movies where the music swells and the guy finally gives in. But this wasn't a movie. This was real life. And in real life, people don't get to reset after they've devalued what was pure. I called her instead of texting. She answered on the first ring. Hey, she said softly. Hey. There was a long pause. Then almost pleading, can we just start over? Please? I exhaled. Start over means pretending the first version didn't exist, and I can't do that. She was quiet. I could hear her breathing, uneven. You wanted a man who didn't act married, I said. So I became the man who doesn't act married. The problem is, now you miss the one who did. She sniffed softly. You're making it sound like it's too late. Because it might be. There it was. The truth I hadn't even realized I'd been holding back. It wasn't about punishment. It was about preservation. Sometimes walking away isn't about ego. It's about dignity, about choosing peace over patterns that hurt you. She started crying then. Not loud, but the kind of tears that come from realization, not heartbreak. The kind where you finally understand what your pride cost you. "I didn't know you'd actually change," she said between breaths. "That's the thing about word," I replied quietly. "They change everything once they're said." After that night, we didn't talk for a while. Weeks passed. I focused on my own life. Work, gym, friends. I was lighter. Not happy in the fireworks kind of way, but steady. Peaceful. One evening I ran into her at a friend's birthday dinner. She looked beautiful as always, but there was something new in her eyes. Humility maybe. Regret. Growth. She walked over, smiling faintly. "Hey, stranger." I smiled back. "Hey." We talked politely, like two people who shared a story but had accepted it was finished. As the night went on, there were little glances, nostalgic, not longing. Maybe we both realized that love isn't always meant to be reclaimed. Sometimes it's just meant to be remembered. Later that night, as I drove home, her words echoed in my mind. "Stop acting like we're married." It had started as an insult, but now it felt like the moment that saved me. From overgiving, from losing myself, from confusing devotion with dependency. The truth is, relationships only stay healthy when effort flows both ways. When you start doing everything, you don't create love, you create imbalance. And imbalance always breaks eventually. By the time I pulled into my driveway, I smiled. Not out of pride, but out of peace. I'd learned one of the hardest lessons love can teach. Never let someone shame you for caring deeply. But also, never keep caring where it isn't equally returned. She wanted just dating, she got it. And when she realized what just dating really meant, no emotional safety net, no priority, no partnership, it wasn't freedom she found. It was loneliness. Because real partnership doesn't suffocate, it supports. It doesn't demand proof. It offers presence. And the day she told me to stop acting like we were married, what she really told me was that she wasn't ready for real. That's not something you can fix. You can love someone deeply, but you can't teach them how to value love. They have to learn that on their own, usually by losing the one who gave it freely. Weeks later, she sent one last message. "I hope you're doing well. I'm sorry for how I made you feel." I read it twice, smiled faintly, and replied, "Thank you, I'm doing great. I hope you are too." No bitterness, no hidden message, just closure, because I didn't need her apology to heal. I'd already done that the moment I stopped trying to prove my worth to someone who only noticed it in absence. And maybe that's the irony of it all. She taught me how to stop acting like we were married, and I taught her what it feels like to lose someone who would have been a husband. The next morning, I woke up early, made coffee for myself, and watched the sunlight crawl across my kitchen counter. Peace, I realized, doesn't come when someone finally sees your value. It comes when you stop needing them to. I had spent months trying to build something stable, thinking commitment was the prize. But the real prize was learning to walk away from imbalance without resentment. Because love, real love, isn't about keeping someone comfortable. It's about building something where both people show up equally. And if one person can't, you don't beg, you don't chase, you don't shrink yourself to fit their comfort zone. You simply adjust your energy and keep walking. I don't know what she's doing now. Maybe she's found someone new. Maybe she's still learning. But either way, I'm grateful. Because without that one careless sentence, "Stop acting like we're married," I might never have realized how much I'd been giving away without noticing the imbalance. Sometimes the words that break you are the same ones that build you. And that's exactly what happened to me. I didn't lose her. I found myself.